Hello, I'm Vicki Thompson, a senior consultant with Thomas P. Miller and Associates. I'm pleased to provide registered apprenticeship information to all of you. Today is part one of a two-session topic concerning building partnerships for regional apprenticeship success. My background is mostly centered on adult learning and training via registered apprenticeship credentials. I was the adult education director of a nationally accredited Ohio Technical Center and spent more than 20 years with that technical center, providing post-secondary career and technical education in Northeast Ohio. I currently work on several projects focused on market analysis, strategic planning, and recommendations for implementation of workforce development plans, economic development plans, and of course, work-based learning initiatives. I work with communities and their agencies, community-based organizations, education, chambers of commerce, economic development, and of course, workforce development boards. So before I get started on this session topic, Ben has asked that I provide a recap of what has been provided so far. So let's recap what Ben did earlier. He went over 4 areas. The first one was registered apprenticeship programs and work-based learning, which provide work tasks to help workers or students gain meaningful experience through the exposure of work-related tasks, complementing these work tasks with activities that reinforce learning outcomes and help workers gain skills. Ben also shared a great visual from the Virginia Department of Education's high-quality work-based learning guide. I believe there are 12 different types of work-based learning in that guide. It provides a nice pictorial pathway that could start as early as middle school and then leads a student into a registered apprenticeship program upon graduation, possibly sooner. And he also talked about career exploration, career exposure, career engagement, and career experience that play an important role in registered apprenticeship and work-based learning. Then he talked about benefits to the job seeker, that these are learn and earn opportunities, meaning a student is paid while they build their skill capacity and the competencies. They end in a nationally recognized credential. A registered apprenticeship program ends with a certification, and sometimes many other certifications as well, industry recognized credentials. A potential registered apprenticeship student could end up with a number of these by the time they're finished with their registered apprenticeship program. Naturally, participants gain workplace skills and experience. There's lower debt burden compared to alternative means of education. When one considers pre-apprenticeship and youth apprenticeship, it's easy to see that there's a quick school to career transition. And another benefit is that it provides high demand career opportunities and allows for the opportunity to work closely with mentors. Benefits to employers include improved productivity and profitability due to skilled workers, and it also provides for integrating the apprentices into work culture. Reduced turnover is a big plus because the retention rate of a registered apprentice is more than 90%. Employers can also have the benefit of developing a diverse, highly skilled team and local workforce. It's an investment in the community. Employers may even qualify for funding that's supported through governments, which are local, regional, state, or federal dollars. The regional partnerships and collaborations could lead to even more funding and recognition for an employer and the community at large. Lastly, Ben went over industry recognized credentials, using a number of sources, including a table of examples to further explain endorsements from locally, regionally, and nationally recognized trade associations. This all eases the transferability of credentials, and these can include occupational licenses, certifications, and certificates. The other thing that Ben went over was that registered apprenticeship programs and work-based learning benefits provide benefits to the job seekers, the employers, and provide the industry credentials. But what I have a question about is, why partner when creating an apprenticeship program? What difference does it make? So considering what those benefits may be, who is it that you can partner with? I won't be surprised if you think of partners in addition to those that I go over in this session. And then we'll talk about understanding how partner agencies can support registered apprenticeship programs. This is an opportunity to grow that collaborative circle that you're building and to pull in a good number of agencies to assist with registered apprenticeship programs. So these are the things that we're going to discuss today. Partnering with whom, and understanding. I heard that Ben gave you a quiz. So go ahead and enter your responses into the chat. I read the questions just so that this doesn't get too confusing. And I'll give you a few seconds to answer each question after I read it. And I'm confident that there'll be many accurate answers, but let's see. So in the chat, please answer the first question. Name 3 benefits of registered apprenticeship programs for employers. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. So 3 benefits of registered apprenticeship programs for employers. I hope you're all feverishly putting your answers in the chat. The next question. Name 3 benefits of registered apprenticeship programs for job seekers. So 3 benefits for job seekers. How is it that a registered apprenticeship program benefits the job seeker? And then lastly, name 4 types of work-based learning. So I had said earlier that there are at least 12. Can you name 4 of them? Put those in the chat. At the end of all of our sessions, I'll be sure that I go through all of the chats, and when we have our live conversation, we can also revisit some of these things. But in the meantime, I am going to give you the answers to these. So let me show you what it is that Ben put together for you as the answers. This should all look familiar. So here we are. When naming 3 benefits of registered apprenticeship programs for employers, did you have any of these? Improved productivity and profitability, reduced turnover, diverse team and local workforce, community investment, governmental funding support, regional connections, integrated workers into work culture. You may have had additional ones as well, but those are just the ones that Ben went over with you. And what about naming 3 benefits of registered apprenticeship programs for job seekers? There are learn and earn opportunities, nationally recognized credentials, workplace skills, a lower debt burden, quick school to career transition, high demand career opportunities, and provided mentors. And lastly, he asked you to name 4 types of work-based learning. And here are a number: job shadowing, service learning, externships, school-based enterprise, mentorship, internship, entrepreneurship, cooperative education, supervised experience, clinical experience, youth registered apprenticeship, and registered apprenticeship programs. Hopefully you did well. So let's talk about this. Why partner when creating a registered apprenticeship program? Keep all of the things that Ben talked to you about in mind as we explore the question of why partner when creating registered apprenticeship program. So look at gaining access to pre-existing local resources is just one of the reasons we're going to go over here. But do you know what's available? It really does beg that question of you. What are the local resources that exist for registered apprenticeship programs? Consider this. What might you influence or recommend to your local leaders? Secondly, increase entry points into the program for apprentices and businesses. Let's take this apart. First, considering apprentices, where do they currently enter registered apprenticeship program opportunities? Who encourages, influences, and guides them while the secondary, post-secondary, or unemployment or underemployed are looking for opportunities? So there's an opportunity to look at all those facets while they're in education, whether it's secondary or post-secondary, if they're unemployed or underemployed. Who is it that's guiding that individual? There may be many entry points. So think about where you might recruit registered apprentices. And then for the business and the employer, you need to find out if they are open to new hires as registered apprentices, or if they're looking inward at incumbent workers for registered apprenticeships. Maybe it's a combination of both. What does the advancement process look like? Is it documented? Has an employer taken the time to put together on paper what an advancement process can look like? Because a registered apprenticeship program will allow for the documentation of those steps for moving a person forward as they're gaining competencies and skills. What's the employer's retention rate? Are they looking to make it better? Because we know that registered apprenticeships will help with that. How much are they willing to invest in a new hire? And what would the selection process look like for participation in a registered apprenticeship program? So there are all these types of things that you need to think about as you talk about what the entry points are for a program. Avoid duplication of training programs. So what are other partners working on? Who are those educational partners that could provide the supplemental education that's required? Collaborating allows for idea generation and new possibilities. Be sure you're not reinventing a wheel. Maybe what exists is perfect the way that it is, or maybe it just needs a few modifications. Save yourself time, money, and frustration. Find out what's out there, talk to your colleagues so that you can avoid duplication of training programs. Next is alignment with local workforce needs. Every workforce development state office and local area has a strategic plan. Do you know what yours is? What is it? Could a registered apprenticeship program have alignment to the needs that are in those strategic plans? It's worth finding out. So make sure that you're aligning with local workforce needs, talking to them about where the gaps are and what they're hearing from employers. And then shared resources and practices. Again, when you have several brains working together for the possibilities, the success could be endless. Don't work in a silo. What best practices exist in your area or have you heard about regionally or even nationally? Share what's been successful as well as what has failed and what those takeaways are. That will strengthen relationships. And then development of wraparound services. Consider services that can make participation in a registered apprenticeship program easier for the individual and easier for the employer or sponsor organization. How could partners work together to address barriers? You're going to find that throughout today's session, I'm going to ask you a number of open-ended questions. And when I do that, I ask that you start making some notes, because this will allow for a nice basis of getting started with a registered apprenticeship program and making sure that you're inviting everybody to the table who can influence how successful that registered apprenticeship program can be. So here's the question. Who do we partner with? Who is it that you should be partnering with? Here are some ideas that you could build partnerships with. And there's the workforce development boards, American job centers, community colleges, your career and technical education providers, both secondary and post-secondary, industry sector partnerships, veteran services, nonprofit agencies, including vocational rehabilitation, local government, K through 12 education system. Who else? I'm sure that there are plenties. I'm going to describe in more detail the ways to collaborate with each partner, but think about who else in your locale would be a partner. Put that in the chat box and we'll discuss that during our live Q&A. So take a few seconds here to put in the chat box, who else locally could be a partner as you're talking about and getting ready to launch a registered apprenticeship program. Who's missing from the list that I have here? I hope you're all feverishly thinking about who these partners could be. Okay, let's move on. Workforce development boards. So many of you may come from this background. Many of you may be working for workforce development boards. But for those who aren't, these are the planners and oversight partners of state and local workforce development plans that could provide the much needed financial resources, data, and community connections that place the potential apprentice with the employer or sponsor. And as I said, many of you represent this partner, but for those who don't, who do you know on your state and local workforce development boards? Think about that a few seconds and write down those contacts now and save it for later. Believe me, if you write them down now, you'll be happy later when I ask about it again. American Job Centers. Again, many of you in attendance may represent this partner. American Job Centers are the connectors between job seekers and employers and addressing skills gaps. They also provide the many wraparound services necessary for individuals to attend training or to become or retain employment. So we talk about things like barriers such as childcare, transportation, etc. They play an important role in being able to answer those barriers. Those wraparound services can mean the difference between a person becoming employed and not, person participating in a registered apprenticeship program or maybe not. So they've played this very important role, and their involvement can make a difference between a successful recruitment of new hires for apprenticeship and on-the-job learning for incumbent workers in a registered apprenticeship program. Take a few seconds now to write down your contacts at the American Job Center in your area. Who are they? Take some time now to write those down. and technical education centers. If you're fortunate enough to have a career and tech center in your locale, use it. They're filled with high school students and in some states, adults whose schooling focuses on real world experiences. Remember, when Ben listed the many occupations covered by registered apprenticeship programs, there were quite a few on that page, you might recall. Chances are that you'll find many of those occupations addressed by programs offered at your local CTE. Their role is twofold. They provide programming that could be matched up with a registered apprenticeship program. This allows for prior credit. Like college credit for courses taken in high school, registered apprenticeship prior credit allows for pre-apprenticeship programs and courses at the CTE level to count as credit toward a registered apprenticeship program. It saves the employer and apprentice time and money. Secondly, several states offer post-secondary CTE instructions, excuse me, that can provide the supplemental education or schooling needed as part of a registered apprenticeship program. So, do you know who's at your CTE? Do you have contacts at your CTE? Are there both a high school, excuse me, and adult training contacts at your CTE? Write those names down. Really think about who at the high school level of the CTE should you be contacting with, who at the adult level, if you have one, a post-secondary side of your CTE, who are those people? Write that down. Are you starting to see a pattern here? You'll be glad that you got all this down by the end of this presentation. So go ahead and write down who your CTE contacts are. Next are community colleges. Community colleges are known for their affordability and accessibility. They too can help registered apprenticeship programs fulfill the related instruction, aka supplemental education component of the registered apprenticeship program. Community colleges are also known to support the integration of wraparound services, and employers may be willing to pay for an apprentice to earn their degree. So this allows for a seamless career pathway going from high school to community college into the registered apprenticeship program. Who are your community college contacts? Do you have a community college nearby that you can work with? Write the names down of those community college contacts that you have. Industry sector partnerships. I'll be getting into more of this tomorrow. But industry sector partnerships provide a collaborative mechanism for employers to work together to address employers' needs. They function well as regional partners who can pull together to discuss and lead the facilitation for addressing training to fill gaps. This type of partnership can ensure quality training is developed for the registered apprenticeship program. These groups can also act as the registered apprenticeship program sponsor, which can be especially advantageous to smaller employers who may not have the capacity to implement a registered apprenticeship program on their own. I'll discuss group-sponsored apprenticeship programs in more details tomorrow. If you have an industry sector partnership in your region, be sure to get to know this partner. If you have that contact person's name or know someone that does have the contact person name, write that down. As I said, tomorrow I will be specifically talking about how the organization I work for, Thomas P. Miller and Associates, work to put together an industry sector partnership and how they've been able to grow registered apprenticeship programs in their area. So they play an important role as an advocate and a champion and can be very successful in helping you with your registered apprenticeship programs. Trusting you wrote that name down. Okay, local government. Your local government partners can carry out and encourage registered apprenticeship programs through policy, convening, etc. Take a look at that first bullet. Who are your county commissioners, your mayor? How about your trustees, council persons, etc.? Do you know these people? Do you have contact with these people? Have you thought about hosting an event where they can learn more about registered apprenticeship program and help you be able to advocate for what you need to have a successful one? I'm going to give you a bit more time to write down all these contacts. This is all going to come together, so be sure to take the time now to write down the contacts. So I'm going to give you an opportunity now to write these down, keep track of all these contact lists that I'm asking you about. But write down who's the mayor, who are the trustees, who are the commissioners, the city councils. You know, who is it that's responsible for managing regional policies that could influence the success of your registered apprenticeship program? Okay, let's move on. Veteran services. How are you working with your veteran services offices concerning registered apprenticeship programs? When entering civilian life, a registered apprenticeship program could be the answer for the veteran and the employer looking for an employee that's disciplined and willing to learn new skills. It could be that the veteran has skills that simply need enhanced. So who is your contact at your local Veterans Services office? You know the drill. Write it down. Nonprofit agencies. Community-based organizations, including those that are faith-based, and nonprofit agencies often offer a wide range of services. So they need to be a partner. They can act as intake partners, provide wraparound services, and many have great programs that are precursors to registered apprenticeship programs, allowing an employer then to choose a candidate that already has some experience in learning and maybe a perfect fit for them. Chances are you have a good mix of both nationally recognized nonprofits and locally founded organizations that are willing to partner to address registered apprenticeship programs. And what about those vocational rehabilitation organizations? What organizations are in your locale that would allow then you to fold in a great opportunity to address diversity in the registered apprenticeship program process? Which organizations in your community could be partners? How can you find out? And of course, who are those contacts? So thinking about the many community-based organizations and nonprofit organizations and agencies in your locale, who is it that should be at the table? This is the perfect opportunity to make sure that underrepresented populations and minorities are at the table. Invite them in. Ask them how a registered apprenticeship program can make a difference to the people that they work with. Ask them what kind of things need to be done so that a person can take advantage of a registered apprenticeship program. Working with community-based organizations and nonprofit agencies allows you to provide a registered apprenticeship program that can be very successful for your community and the employers in it. The K through 12 education system. They can provide career exploration, career exposure, career engagement, and career experience, just as Ben had talked about earlier. Remember that Virginia Department of Education high quality work-based learning guide pictorial that Ben shared with you earlier today, that one I mentioned at the beginning of this session? It shows a roadmap of opportunity for work-based learning that starts with earlier grades and leads to registered apprenticeship program. So when you think about registered apprenticeship program and what that can look like, you need to consider how soon can people really start learning about work-based learning opportunities. There are many school systems across the United States that not only have middle school students, but also children in primary grades learning about career exploration and that type of thing. These can all learn to work-based learning opportunities and end in registered apprenticeship programs. What's your local school system doing to address work-based learning? And more specifically, the opportunity for students to gain employment where advancements come through work-based learning, such as registered apprenticeship programs. It's worth exploring and addressing. You may have a number of school districts in your area. It might be advantageous to find out how often your county's school superintendents meet, or how often guidance counselor organizations meet. Those are perfect opportunities to be able to ask questions and encourage registered apprenticeship program type conversations, work-based learning type conversations. If your educational service center is providing work-based learning opportunities or might consider it, contact them as well. So there could be a number of potential partners within the K through 12 education system that can eventually guide a student to a registered apprenticeship program or working with an employer who has them. This too may be an extensive list of contacts to add to your partners list. May as well get started on that. I'll give you a minute. So I'm going to wrap up by saying there are numerous agencies that can provide support for registered apprenticeship programs. And you know that because you've already started writing all of this down. I'm sure there are organizations that I didn't mention that came to top of mind for you. You know who your partners are. You know who the movers and shakers are. You know who's passionate about getting things started in your area. You know that building partnerships takes time and effort. That's why you need to have a plan. That's why you need to write it out. Partnerships play an important role in building successful registered apprenticeship programs. There are so many advantageous things that can happen out of registered apprenticeship programs and coming together and pulling together partners that want to do it. You're going to have partners who will refer apprentices, that will provide educational curriculum and materials that can be used for the supplemental education that's necessary for on-the-job learning. You're going to want to have partners who have those support wraparound services to make sure that both the apprentice and the employer can be successful and have the support that they need. And then connecting the agencies for collaboration. It's really important that everybody understand and have the same understanding as to how the Registered Apprenticeship Program is going to work, that everybody plays a role, that everybody can advocate so that you can have a successful Registered Apprenticeship Program. So here's your assignment. It's going to take you a little while, so I'm giving you at least 15 to 20 minutes to be able to do this, and we can talk more about it during the live session. So thinking about what a Registered Apprenticeship Program might look like in your locale. Who are the partners that should be contacted? You have a big list there. You have a lot to go through. Who are the champions that will make the difference for a Registered Apprenticeship Program successful implementation? There typically is a champion. There typically is somebody who really wants it to work. I would recommend that if you can start with employers, that's probably your best bet. They're the ones who need people. They're the ones who are going to tell you where their gaps are. So if you start with the employer or an employer group, you should be able to get an answer pretty quickly as to whether that entity can be your champion. Keep in mind, what are the occupations that are being considered? What are the in-demand jobs in your area? Do you know? How is it that you're going to decide where to start with your Registered Apprenticeship Program occupations? Where is that demand? What type of jobs? And you may find that there are a number of different types of employers in your area that are willing to start an apprenticeship program. Ben went through that list with you. And so thinking about who your employers are, who is it that might be ripe for a Registered Apprenticeship Program? It only takes one, because once they've had some success, they'll start talking to others, and you'll grow that opportunity for Registered Apprenticeship Programs and helping employers with it. Really thinking about and really talking about as partners what type of Registered Apprenticeship Program it's going to be. And again, I mean, ultimately, an employer is going to decide what's best for them. Are they going to do an individual model where it's theirs, customized the way that they want it? Will they get involved with the group-sponsored model where a number of employers have sat down together and actually went through what the curriculum and the on-the-job learning will look like so that they have competencies that match up? I can say that a group-sponsored way does allow for educational institutions to have a better number of cohorts so you can be sure the programs are going to run and courses will run. So there are some advantages to that. And then also, thinking about what the OJL and supplemental instruction will be. Are you going to do a traditional time-based with 576 hours of schooling and 8,000 hours of on-the-job training, the one they call the other 4-year degree? Will it be competency-based? Will the registered apprentices be able to move along at their own speed with the program itself? Because as they are able to show competency, they can move on to the next one. So it's not based on time, but it's based on their competency, and they can keep moving at their own pace. Or is it a combination of the two? Will it be a hybrid? So these are just things to keep in mind, when you start thinking about who are the partners and what are the partners going to be able to do. So I'm going to give you the next 15 minutes or so to start writing this down, put your list together, really start thinking about what this needs to look like so that you can be successful. And then I'll be back tomorrow to go over part 2 of this. Have a great rest of the day.